My brain says this, try this.
The St. Louis Cardinals don't know what an infield fly is, and I guarantee they know what an infield fly is.
And he struggled mightily, and I think that becomes an issue because now he's so criticized.
Talking
Overfluff.
over fluff. Too much fluff.
I think so.
Well, we're going to talk about it. Welcome, everybody, to the Hitting Zone podcast. That's where we take tough subjects and itch your head while you're at it because it's allergy season, I guess, and you have to itch. But that's where we crush them. We crush those itches. We crush topics. And that's what you do. And if you like what we're doing, please make sure you follow me. I'm on Instagram at _MTS Performance. That has got a lot of information on there, fun drills, a lot of conversations. On X at Hitting Zone STL, capital H, Z, and STL. TikTok, so I'm doing a lot of work over there. Recently, I've been trying to grow that channel. So if you're not following me on TikTok, please head over there and follow. I'd like to get to 1,000 subscribers or followers, whatever they're called, so that I can start selling you guys some of the things that I have that I use that help our athletes get better. So make sure you go over there and follow at the Hitting Zone STL. I think I forgot that part. So Game 7 Baseball and their support for Youth Baseball Midwest, they've been awesome for this program. We go out and we do several events for them. We have the Super 7, which last time I was here, there was only one spot remaining. 2 spots remaining. Added 2 more spots. So make sure you get in there. I played in it last year. It was a great event. It's out at the WAC. Prime Sports Midwest, 3 locations, Fenton, Chesterfield, and St. Peter's. It's still closed. St. Peter's is still closed. Fenton and Chesterfield's open. So if you wanted to get some product in hand, that you make sure you go over there. Of course, you can order your gear online. That's what I do if I need to get team spirit, stuff like that, team gear. YBM Club, it's live. It's exclusive content. You got available rankings, breakdowns, player spotlights, early access to content that's coming out. We have high school baseball that just started, so we're going to have content going into there from the events that we do. That we do games of the weeks, and so we have a great schedule for high school baseball this year, and I actually think we'll be up in the gentlemen's area this year, I think in the Kansas City area, if I'm correct. So make sure you join now. They got the legacy member pricing. You have to go to youthbaseballmidwest.com, click the YBM Club, sign up. That way you can just have some fun information. There's discussion boards on there. It's absolutely great. If you have discussions, I'll respond. I'm on it. And I like to talk. So without further ado, I'm excited about this one because he come recommended from a guest that I've had on this show several times, in Cody Massey. He's been great for our show. Great for me, great for learning, and you come highly recommended. So all the way from the other side of the state, we brought in Hunter Hisky. I'm assuming that's how it's sounds, I guess. That was terrible.
Yep.
I'm glad I'm a host. Hunter, if you could just introduce yourself to the fans here in St. Louis.
Yeah, I'm Hunter Hisky. I used to work with Cody over in the St. Louis area for like the last 5 years or something. Basically, I moved out there right after COVID, or right during the middle of COVID in the fall. And I was still playing a little bit of independent professional baseball at the time. So he kind of let me use his place as a opportunity to train and, train some of his athletes. And I just ended up sticking there even after I retired for all the way up until this past October, and then moved back home to the Kansas City area. And now I work for an academy called Building Champions, similar to what I was doing over there, just kind of developing catchers and hitters and coaching a couple of teams this summer. So I'm excited about it.
Did you play for Gateway or in that area? I'm assuming because you were kind of in that space, I thought maybe Gateway.
For like a couple weeks. And I couldn't cut it. So I got sent back to Idaho Falls.
Gotcha.
I just had a poor showing in spring training, so it didn't work out.
I mean, that is professional sports, right? You have to cut it, even if it's not affiliated levels. You still have to be able to meet the demands of that coaching staff. And right. Did you work with Mike Brayman at all?
A little bit. So I got to know him a little bit through summer ball. He managed the youth program called the Blue Jays and I was with Extreme Elite at the time, so we ran into him all the time. So I got to know Mike a little bit and kind of bounce ideas off of each other with some of our guys that we were familiar with.
Yeah, Mike is. I've played men's league in the Montclair League against Mike for I don't know how long, and it's when the first time he joined the league, or when he played in it when he wasn't obviously with Gateway or whatever, and they come in and they're talking about this hit king, this guy that just whatever, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, how in the world did a guy like this not get a shot at affiliated ball? He's a big guy, he can mash baseballs, he did well at Kentucky. And it just, and like for you, I looked at your college stats. Same thing. You had a great college career. You did some things, and it was still tough for you to get to that next level and play in an affiliated ball. I know that playing professionally is still pretty cool. But looking at guys like you and Brayman, it's like, man, these guys could break. And it's like, how did you not get a shot? And I know it's business. I know that size. I know there's stereotypes. I know that all of those things happen. And I guess they're smarter maybe than us. I don't know, but man, I just think about that kind of stuff and how difficult it is, and it brings us in today's conversation, which is about developing athletes. And are we truly doing a really good job of developing our athletes? Because I know that it's a little bit different than when you played, but I mean, I didn't mean to go off the rails there with Mike. He's a guy that I absolutely loved playing against, enjoyed
Mike's
being
got to
around.
dominate that. Mike's got to dominate that league. He's a monster.
He is a monster. And you know what's crazy is did you ever play in the Montclair League at all for anything?
No, I
Man,
coached a few guys that would do Montclair and then play for me when I coached the college team for a different summer league. So some
dude,
guys double dipped.
I am telling you right now, like John Reinerker was in that. He played in the Texas Rangers organizations. He's from over in that space. I can't tell you the volume of athletes that played in the professional baseball rankings, whether it's affiliated ball or indie ball. I played with a guy named Lee Cruz who had like 100 like AAA home runs and was a sniff away from making it to the White Sox. And I'm not sure if you remember the catch that was made to kind of save Mark Burley's perfect game at the wall by the center fielder. That's the guy that actually got the call up to play that game instead of him. And he's the one that saved Mark Burley's. Anyways, I only know that because I played with Lee. Lee hits like 14 homers in maybe like 20 games. Like it was absolutely insane to just be a part of something special. But that's when you guys hang it up, that's what we had, and it was absolutely fun to be a part of. So if you ever come back to St. Louis and you still like playing, the Montclair League is legit, and there's legit talent. They still throw 90. They got guys that might throw a little harder than that. Fresh out of D1, it's a blast. But anyways, I could talk about Montclair
90.
baseball all day.
90 sounds horrible right now. I hop in the cage every once in a while with some of our high school guys and just face the high velo machine. It's like, man, this used to look a lot easier. It's like you take a couple years off, it leaves you quick.
I can bunt high velo. I don't think I can hit.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can hit. I don't even know if I can bunt it right now. I don't even know. First of all, I'm 45 and I don't want to stand in the box. I don't want to look terrible. So when I have conversations with hitters and I hit like one baseball back wall, I'm done. Like I'm not trying that again because I'm like, man, that felt really good. I better stick to not embarrassing myself here. But that's the thing. Like the competitor, it kind of never changes. You never really lose it. But the one thing I don't want to do is compete with high school kids, and like I'm better than you kind of mentality. I just like to do it because it's fun.
100%.
But I cannot hit anywhere close like I used to, and I'm slower. I'm out of shape. I love the game. I love teaching it. I love learning movement patterns and stuff like that. But I can't squat like I used to. So like I used to catch two, and so I love this one knee down thing.
100%.
I could just stay down in the zone, and I'm good. I mean, that left leg typically goes numb, but that could be because I have no more blood flow going to it. Hunter, I want to talk baseball. I know that that's what we're doing, but I want to talk development, youth side. You said you're a catching guy, hitting guy. That's where your primary focus is. But I kind of, you said that you coached, and I want to kind of get into the subjects of, do you think coaches as a whole really value the player development side versus chasing or a collection of talent chasing wins? And this is this is the whole community. I have a feeling that if I was to ask you personally that question, I know the answer already. You're focused on developing, you're going to work with your athletes already. I need you to think about the entire club community, because personally for me, I think there's way too many club teams, especially in my space. I don't know about necessarily yours, but I feel like we have 112U teams in our area. I could be way off, but that's the
It's a
volume that
lot.
I think. Well, that's what I think that we're at. We just have that many athletes. And I know that there's not that many coaches that are that knowledgeable in this sport to be able to develop athletes. And so, you know, do you think as a community of baseball coaches that we're actually really wanting development for our players, or just a kind of collection of the talent and see what happens?
I think it's so hit or miss, right? It's like it's baseball gets a bad rap sometimes, and I think it's the guys who I don't know if they want to try to live out their career through their sons or what they just pride gets in the way or whatever. But you see it all the time. Every weekend you go to a complex at a tournament, you see kids getting thrown over 100 pitches at 12 years old. You see the dad's son playing shortstop and leading off. You see this stuff on an every weekend basis. Now there are plenty of guys who are in it for the right reasons too that I see, that introduce failure. They kind of help the kid experience failure and how to deal with it, and actually try to set them up for a future beyond 12U and prepare them for the next level, which that's what we should all be doing. No matter what level you're at, you prepare them for the next level, not the level that they're at right now, until they get to pro ball, or until they reach the pinnacle of the sport. You train them for the next level, no matter where they're at, in my opinion.
Yeah, I asked that question because, like you said, you see the weekend chase, right? You have your one arm that's going to go out there and maybe pitch 2 days of a 3-day weekend, or maybe he's pitching Saturday, Sunday because it's a 2-day tournament. You play 3 to say 5, 6 games if you're lucky, if you can get to the championship. And I'm trying to figure out, how is that actually developing our athletes by playing 6 games in 2 days, or 3 games in 2 days, whatever the case may be. And then there's nothing happening during the week. You schedule a practice. The practice is probably not functional because you have 9 to say 11, 12 kids showing up. How do you really run an efficient skills practice? And work on the details that you struggled with maybe from the weekend. And then you don't have anything else the rest of the week. So you practice once a week. Maybe you have a guy that likes to practice twice a week, but I know that you don't get the playing stuff. I know that's invested into the game, but I don't know that that's always the what we need is 15 hours at a ball field, getting guys mentally exhausted and thinking they're retaining knowledge. So that's what kind of my question comes from. And do you think that, like, that's taking away from the opportunities to really actually develop our kids long term, because we play so much and there's so much focus just on tournament baseball versus having games through the week?
It's definitely part of it. I think there needs to be a balance. Like, there is some good that comes out of playing tournament baseball. You're teaching kids how to win, have a winning mindset, take put the team first above themselves. But it's not a. There's a fine line between teaching them how to win at all costs and play the game in a winning way. I think there's a huge difference there. Playing the game in a winning way means focusing on the little details, backup responsibilities, executing double cut situations, making sure that you're paying attention in the dugout and picking up on pitcher tendencies. There's a lot there that you can teach to train a kid how to win or play a winning brand of baseball without so much focus on just the final outcome, whether it's win or lose.
Yeah, we
Sorry about
had
the noise in the
no,
background.
it's good. So Coach Yeager was on from Johnson County. Yeah, Johnson County. Last week, and we had talked about that same thing. What is winning baseball? And and that fine line again, going to the youth side. Like, just because you win a tournament doesn't mean you know how to play winning baseball, especially when you don't bunt, you don't work bunt defenses, because nobody bunts in summer baseball. So when you get to high school, a lot of these kids are unprepared for to compete in high school. And our high school coaches, in order to stay around and, develop the programs, they have to have winning cultures set. So they get paid to do their job. And a lot of people, want to say, talk to politics or whatever the nonsense is that is high school baseball to some. Coaches don't cut kids because they're overweight or they're too tiny. They cut kids because they're not good enough for that coach. And
Yeah.
we have to prepare these young people for dealing with adversity. And I don't know that we do a good enough job of doing that. It's awesome that you got the ring and the flag right at the end of the tournament. I think that's great. But what did you do to win that game that will help you long term? Running the bases and taking advantage of a like a 9 or 10 U, because you can just keep running because nobody can throw the ball around the infield. That
Right.
doesn't mean anything to me. Now, as a defendant coach, I have to shut it down, right? But offensively, you're not helping that kid. You're not
Mhm.
helping them learn how to run the bases and make decisions for themselves. When you're like, come on, come on, come on, everybody's doing that kind of crap. And so
Yeah.
I struggle with the thought process as, are we actually developing our kids to be better baseball players?
Well, it's about adding as many tools to the tool belt as possible, right? Like a 12-year-old now might look completely different by the time he's a freshman in high school. Like you see the dude every year that's 12 years old and he's 50 pounds heavier and a foot taller than the rest of his teammates. But then he's the same size when he becomes a freshman, and all of a sudden going 4 for 4 is the only way that he knows how to help a team win a game. So if he hasn't learned how to help the team in other ways, like meaning being a good teammate in the dugout, picking up other people, if you're behind the plate, helping guide a pitcher through the game, if you learn how to bunt, learn how to play defense, like there's so many ways to help a team win a game other than just offensive production or striking guys out on the mound. That might be the flashy way to do it at 12. That really comes easy to you. That if you don't learn those other ways to help a team out, then all of a sudden, if when it gets a little bit harder, when the rest of the community catches up to you physically, and it doesn't come easy to you anymore, now what do you do? It's like I haven't been taught how to maintain a team, my first mindset when I'm 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and I've left 10 guys on base. There's so much more to it that needs to be focused on other than just the flashy tools that we see at showcases.
I saved an at bat from last year. Aaron Judge was like 0 for 4 going at. I think it was Aaron Judge. It was a Yankees. It was either Giancarlo Stanton or Aaron Judge. Was like 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and like this lazy ground ball, terrible. And he came up in extra innings, 2 outs, and hit a big tying single. And you just think about the situations, like, what if he would have just let that 0 for 3, he was a bad teammate, right? And that 0 for 3 got to him and he was like, oh my God, here we go again. I got 2 outs. I got 2 strikes on me, whatever the case may be. If he'd have just given up, you know what I mean? And that's what I don't think we're doing a good enough job of teaching that, because I don't know if parents want to see that failure. So then all of this stress, like for me, I'm like, let the kid fail. Let me work with the kid. Don't yell at him at home or on the way home. Just let us work together. And instead of like saying, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? It's like, man, it's hard. The game is so hard at times, and sometimes it's so easy. And that's what I think. That's why we play with averages, right? That's why we have those things available to us, is because it averages out in a whole season. But the
Yeah,
game is so matter. It's manufactured in the sense of how you do on your weekends. Because if you went 0 for 10 one weekend, but you went 10 for 10 the next weekend, you're doing darn good for 2 weekends. If you just
100%.
look at the weekend stats. And so like how can we get away from kind of that stuff? And what do we need to kind of suggest to our parents and saying, hey, it's not the 0 for 10 that matters. It's the 0 for 10 that did he talk to his teammates, right? Like, did he help his teammates with the pitch selection he saw? Where did he's, where was he at mentally and stuff like that? I just think we miss on letting these kids fail and self organize. And how can we help let's just talk with our coaches. How do we help our coaches learn to teach that to our young people?
Well, I wish quality at bat percentage was a game changer stat that we could educate the parents on, and like whoever's keeping game changer for your team marks down whether it's a quality at bat, so that average and slugging percentage and all the main statistics that you see aren't live and die mentality with our people. I wish quality at bat percentage was tracked by every team in youth baseball. That would change so much.
That's interesting that you say that. Our big, like, growing up when we charted, and I'm 45 years old. So, we charted what average was back then. And I don't think average is such a batting average, and even ERAs. Those things were tracked way more than strike percentage or QABs or quabs is what we like to call them when we
Yep.
were in college. And so the QAB chart came out, and our coach made it very specific on identifying what is a measurable goal, right? And I don't think that even our coaches understand what measurable goals are. Everybody thinks that, like, your team wants to hit 450 for the weekend. Like, that's not a real measurable goal, because you got one guy facing 8 guys in front of him and the catcher behind him, right? So, and then an umpire if you want to add that. So there's variables to that. So it's very difficult to manage. However, or measure, excuse me, you can measure things like quality at bats, because what is a quality at bat, and do you guys do that even like in the cages? Do you talk about what a quality swing is or a quality AB, even though maybe the result wasn't necessarily? Do you do that indoors, or do you just basically rip and let it be?
Yeah, so indoor we kind of go through stations. We have our movement prep, which is all of our water bags, priming the body, making sure it's ready to rotate. And then we have our get loose reps in the cage and our mechanical work. So that's going to be our tee and our front toss. And we actually have our cages divided into thirds. So we have 1/3 of the cage is going to be like our short box area where we're doing mechanical work and we can film and break down stuff. And then we tell our guys when they move on to the bigger side, which is 2/3 of the cage, that's when we have our double machine, our spin ball, our high velo work. Those are our compete reps. So we make them step out of the box, go through a routine before every pitch, stare at your bat, take a deep breath, step in with your back foot, front foot, top hand, bottom hand. And then we make whoever's feeding the machine like come set like they're a pitcher so that we can actually time it up like a game. And there is no mechanical thoughts when you get into the compete cage. It is all you pick a count, we make them say what count they're working in, and we'll do 2-ball, we'll do fastball rounds, we'll do curveball only rounds, we'll mix the machine up to make it as game like as possible. And we just like really establish what their routine is going to be between pitches and during the game so that they actually practice it, because I feel like that never gets practiced, the routine side of things.
This goes back to the development side and asking that initial question of, are we really developing? Because when you have these large programs, and this is another question, we'll answer this one first before we get into kind of that. Do you think there's too many club teams? And when I say club, I'm talking travel, select, whatever you want to call it, because I think rec is dead. I think rec baseball is dead, especially in my space. I think everybody needs to wear something on the front of the jersey, and that large organization's like, yep, I'll take your money. That's how I feel. I know that they're trying to do their best job of helping these folks out, but a single A level kid does not need to pay the same pricing as the top level kids, because they're not going to get it right now the way those kids do. You can argue that they need to be set in a different setting. Maybe they need to work more in the fall versus the winter so they don't take time away from your other coaches, whatever. But do you think that there's just too many club travel teams in general?
I'd say in general, probably. That's kind of a loaded question because that you are going to have the occasional story of a kid that comes out of like a single A that develops his way all the way up to be a college athlete. We get usually one of those around here a year. And those are honestly my favorite stories that because my path was pretty similar to one of those where I was a little bit overlooked all the way through high school and then ended up figuring it out and I was a late bloomer puberty wise. So I really didn't figure out myself until my freshman year at college. And that's kind of when I turned myself into a good baseball player. I was barely doing just enough to get there. So I kind of sympathize with those lower level guys that stick to it, put in the time, and eventually, end up becoming something. But overall, it's a lot of, I don't know, they're surrounded by guys who don't necessarily have those same goals. So it's about weeding out those potential stories at those lower levels and making sure that they get what they need. And I don't know how you do that.
Yeah, that's an interesting take because I think there's actually more of those people than we really give credit. Like when you see at 9 years old, you see a kid and you're like, oh, he moves well, or he just doesn't have the hand-eye coordination, or something's off, right? Like there's just, again, growth. Kids start growing, get stronger, and they make contact with these hot bats. There it goes, and everybody feels good about it. And -3 exposes everything, right? When we get to the BB core section of bats and wood, it starts to expose athletes. But I'm the same way that you were. And I was a big kid. And so they told me I needed to go play football. They told me I needed to go play and do shot put, and do all the things that big guys do and wrestle and do all these things. And I was like, I love baseball. And I was tired of getting picked last in basketball when we were playing street ball and we were doing anything. I never wanted to be picked last. So for me, it was about wanting the drive to be better than I was the day before. Now, I know that there's kids like that. And that's probably why your single A level kid made it out of single A baseball, is because that kid went to work. Again, the development of coaches. Are we really developing athletes? Or are the athletes really being developed on their own because they're dedicating their life to getting better? Whether that's 9 or 15, I don't know, but you're not going to be good at this if we practice once a week and play a couple games on the weekend. It's just not going to happen. And I love that story too. Like that's where you came from, because a lot of guys that we have on this show weren't the most elite athletes on their team. They had to work for something to get somewhere and then became a great coach because of the knowledge and time that they put into this game. And, when I think about the volume of teams, how and development, as how do we, like, 6-week generic programs? You just talked about having a situation where your cage work is having multiple guys in there. One cage is in a third, another cage is you got 2/3 of the cage is a certain machine pitch, and the other third is for something different. And it's like you have a process that's happening that's creating development and mindsets. One of the biggest things you said is you make them step out and have a routine. I asked a high school kid the other day, he's a sophomore in high school. I said, what's your routine if your coach tells you to go hit and he doesn't give you an outline of what you need to do for your hitting routine? And he goes, do what it's because right now we're indoors because it's raining here, right? So high school tryouts, these kids have to kind of have their own routine. They just go in and start ripping with no purpose. And I'm like, you didn't go through none of your movement prep. You didn't do none of these things, and you just walk in and hit. Of course you're not prepared. And it's like, I think about that stuff, and I love what you're doing with your group. And I just cannot see that we have so many teams and this volume of teams. I don't see a great structure in program training as a whole. I'm an outsider looking in, not what I do. Because I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else by no means. I still think I have room for growth to be better my players. That's why I'm always adapting and changing. But when I hear other people talk about their program directives, like things like their hitting programs, they're videotaping them, and all I do is see the coach sitting down, and it's just directing, babysitting is kind of how I feel about it. And like, that's how can we get away from saying that that's acceptable for our athletes? And I know that like doing what you do might cost a little bit more money, but you're developing the mindset They're not doing that in a
Right.
6-week, 12-week generic program.
Yeah. I mean, we train our guys all season long or all off season long. In group, we love the group classes because we can kind of have 4 cages reserved, all of them set to a different look. So you got a couple of stations where the machines are set to a right-handed arm angle, a couple of stations where the machines are set to a left-handed arm angle. It does allow us to kind of break them up into groups of 3, and one kid can video, one kid can feed, one kid can hit, and then we like the video delay app on the iPads where it'll be on like 100-second delay. So after you hit, you have a station where you go back and you can watch your round and learn from it. And that's usually where the instructors are. Myself and Jeremy Jones, who I don't know if you've met Jeremy before. He's our head of building champions. He's kind of our main guy. And then Jerry Cope, shout out those two. They taught me a lot of what I know and what I teach here. We're usually floating around with the guys and breaking down their film with them, and that's kind of where we come into place. But it is very player led. That being said, we had to put a lot of time in to build it up to be player led. There was a lot of hands on stuff, but now that it is, like, the guys that come in consistently for the most part know what they're doing, I think it's even stronger that they can kind of be their hitting coach, and we're just there for things here and there, like really small things here and there, and more mentality stuff than mechanics.
Have you found that to be more beneficial to those athletes versus
I
like the
think
one-on-one
so.
instruction?
Everybody's different. Like the lower level guy that's just starting out probably needs a couple of sessions of one-on-one just so you can really cater to them. And there's some guys that have a lot of different stuff to work on mechanically. And if you don't have good mechanics, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure when you get into a group setting and things start to speed up on you, because you might be hitting with a Division 1 commit and be in the same group with them, but your mechanics aren't good enough to hit a 70-mile-an-hour fastball consistently, and this guy is going to want to be facing 95 with big league breaking ball stuff. So we got to make sure that they're up to speed enough to hang with whoever they're put with. But in general, I think for the mid to higher level guy, it is good because they're around other people, they're competing with each other, they're getting all sorts of different looks and different arm angles, and there's a lot of variety that we can throw at them and challenge them.
That becomes more of an independent thing versus being like what I was kind of getting at was I see a lot of one-on-one instruction, and the kids take that and that they've become very dependent on the coach's directives, right? So I think in the setting that you're creating there at BC, I think that when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm thinking kids are learning to self-organize when they make mistakes. They're adjusting and to the velocity, because at some point you want to stop swinging and missing. So you're going to learn to be direct to the path, or whatever you're telling yourself, the real versus field conversation, or the high level patterns versus knob to the ball. I don't know. Like the debate on hitting is so goofy right now. The thing with Jeff Fry and Teacher Man, it's like, listen, man, what Teacher Man teaches isn't always wrong. It's just goofy sometimes the way that he looks doing it. So he gets a bad rap because he's in blue jeans, and some of us old heads or whatever think that's weird or something. I have no idea.
It's entertaining. Watching those two go back and forth is pure entertainment.
Well, Jeff, I've kind of lost a little bit of follow on him. I used to love it in the beginning because I didn't really understand HLP, if you will. And I've had the opportunity to kind of sit and talk to some guys that really like the movement patterns. And really, to be honest, if I look in the mirror, right, that's something that we don't do enough of. If I look in the mirror, I go, wow, I'm actually doing what he's telling me to do. That's crazy, right? Like it's just what he looks like when doing it. He's in blue jeans and Monarchs. Everybody else is in Jordans and Fabletics or Lululemon or something crazy, And it's just like, I just don't, there's not a one size fits all kind of swing environment. And I think that when you do these things that you have all these different skill sets together. They are just feeding off each other. They talk to each other. It is something that I think they're going to retain the knowledge better because it's them doing it versus you actually consistently telling them what they're doing wrong and then how to fix it. And the
Right.
dependency changes, right? And so I think that's a big value. So if there's one takeaway from this conversation, and you're a director or you need some help deciding what to do at your team practices, listen to what Coach Hisky just said about how he sets up his cages, because that creates the dependency on yourself. You have to self-organize. Is that something that you learned through working with these guys, or is this something that started back when you played like high school baseball or even in college?
Definitely something that I started to do in college, just having to go up to the cage and hit on my own quite a bit in college. And if you picture a private Division II low budget program, the machines and the baseballs aren't exactly going to be perfect. So you're having to learn how to be adjustable and make adjustments, and you got to hit the random one that pops out of the machine 10 miles an hour harder at the top of the zone, and then you got to hit the random splitter that it throws that's 15 miles an hour slower at the bottom of the zone. So just kind of that's how I learned how to do it myself in college. But in terms of the structure of how we do groups here, um, that's Jeremy and Jerry, the two that I mentioned that kind of are one of two of the top hitting guys here that they've taught me so much about developing guys. So the credit goes to them. I'm just kind of following their lead and helping them organize things.
I love that you're giving shout outs to somebody that's giving you direction. I'm 45 and I have a young coach that's 26, and he is on the pitching side, and I don't know nearly the information that he does. And if there's something that he comes across, he sends it over to me, and he will, when he's done with whatever he does, if I'm working with a group, a team, he will come over and ask me why I'm doing something. He'll ask me questions and details, and then I'll give him my explanation. And then he won't call me out in front of everybody. But when we're done, he goes, "Don't think about it this way. Think about it that way." And he's giving me all these details to learn. And
That's awesome.
that's well, exactly. I think that's what's great about just acknowledging. And that's Coach Brown he works. We call it Earth Strong Performance. It's our pitching program, and he's got some indie ball on it. He's played at State Fair. He's a Mobat guy from Chicago, actually, and uh, his mindset works differently than mine. I'm old fashioned, and I still a lot of the eye test things. So everything I've created up to this point, maybe a year ago, has always been really eye test stuff. Now it's about the programming for me. Do you? I know there's still eye test stuff that it has to. It's part of the game, right? From watching thousands of swings, I know what you're doing. There's only one thing that you can do when you roll over, right? Like mechanically. And there's only one thing
Yeah.
to do when you barrel a ball. There's only one thing that you've done when you've flared a ball. Like I'm going back to all the information I had collected over eye test stuff. But now to start to talk about, contact angles and posture and tilt, what's the difference between the two? Not everybody's putting in the same time. So programming, I think nowadays is much more important than the one-on-one structure. I do still think there's value in one-on-ones, but the programming side of business, I think, holds way more value right now than the one-on-one. How do you feel about programming versus one-on-ones?
Yeah, ultimately, it just helped us impact more athletes. So that's first and foremost why I like it a little bit more. And then I like the competitive aspect of it and how you're a little bit thrown into the fire, especially if you get thrown into a higher level group. And I think that only long term benefits those guys that kind of have to get up to speed, as opposed to if you get thrown into a group where you're the best guy. I don't know that it's necessarily pushing you to where you need to be. So we try to look for as many opportunities to throw some of our mid tier, like guys that aren't quite where we hope they're going to end up one day, guys that aren't quite there yet. We try to throw those guys in with our high level guys as much as possible, because if you can fail now and then maybe figure a little bit of it out in 1 or 2 sessions, then like ultimately that's going to help your mindset going forward. So I like just the mentality aspect that it brings, being with some guys that maybe you're not as familiar with, and it's a little bit out of your comfort zone. And the guys need to learn how to be uncomfortable, to really push through some barriers sometimes. And I think the one-on-one, it's good because you can really personalize it and make it all about them, and maybe clean a few things up here and there, but it's not pushing you out of your comfort zone at all as a player. It's more like I could front toss or throw BP to somebody and find out where their bat path is consistently and just feed that swing over and over again if I really wanted to. You know, like a one-on-one just is so much in their comfort zone, and then group training and program training, if done right, pushes them out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, I like the programming side. We use kind of the hybrid model, if you will, where we have a lot of in-person routines, and then you have your at-home workouts, or you can come up to the facility, kind of do your own thing, open gyms or whatever you want to call them. We've seen a significant growth in just the few months that we've done it. So we started back in August. We've had our pitchers, one of our guys that we have a couple pitchers, some that put in all the work and some that put in minimal work and got minimal gains. And the guy that puts in all the work is, went from being 79, 81 as a top to now he sits 85 and hits 87 in his games. And that's a 6-7 months journey. And the commitment that it's taken, he's gained 20 pounds. He's
Yeah.
in 1,000-pound club. These things don't happen by accident. And I don't think one-on-ones give enough of that. I think when you have a certain maybe level of quality, because I work with Shane Eames. I'm not sure if you know who Shane is. He does PhD hitting, premier hitting development down south, like with the Naturals organizations, or in that space.
Gotcha.
He loves his one-on-ones, and he does team training too, but he loves his one-on-ones. He typically deals with like elite level kids who are on their own already working somewhere else. So they're going in there for cleanups and I mean, his
Yeah.
professional athletes and stuff like that. Those guys are doing programming at their facilities or what the teams they play with, because they're already in elite level status. I think, the average athlete, which is the vast majority of our athletes, the average kid, needs to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And that's something that our head coach at Wash U was big on, always trying to put us in uncomfortable situations and make us comfortable. Never put us in harm, but would do some things that would be uncomfortable. Whether it was on the field or where we worked out or how we worked out. Kids, we have very introverted kids there at Wash U with the way their education was. And we would go work out at parks in front of a bunch of people that would make them feel uncomfortable. And then if they didn't have a great workout, there was a price to pay. We would make them run in situations that weren't comfortable. We practiced in the rain. I'm talking old school values that you could deal with anything, whatever. But
Yeah, it's like what I'm trying to be comfortable in the game, not in practice. So just logic to me, it would make sense. Like if I have a test coming up that I know is going to be really hard if I'm in school, I'm not going to take like the 5-question pop, practice quiz that are full of layup questions to prepare for that test. I'm going to probably take a practice test that's even harder than the one I'm going to take, so that the test feels a little bit easier. That's kind of how logic makes sense in baseball. If I know I'm going to be facing somebody pretty good on the mound and I'm a hitter and I know I'm going to be in the lineup, why wouldn't I go challenge myself with something that's even more difficult, so that hopefully that guy looks a little bit easier? It's like deep down, if I just go in there and hit BP and 50-mile-an-hour fastballs right down the middle over and over again, it's like deep down I know that the dude that I'm facing is going to be way tougher than this.
Yeah, it's like, can you imagine like the guys at Blue Springs South or Liberty North, they're going up against each other and they're just hitting front toss instead of preparing for them for 3 days in this game, and they're doing everything with high velo stuff, or their overhand BP and all these things that are just preparing to face somebody that throws 90 plus miles an hour, and they're thinking about this days in advance, not hours. And And I think that's interesting, just the routines that we don't have. And so as I want you, I'm going to ask you to sell parents on why programming is important. I know that you kind of brought a lot of that up with how you feel about the competitive nature of it being, putting them in uncomfortable situations. But what is the to a parent who, and I don't know about your space. In our space, we have a lot of one-on-one value. Like that's what parents believe in. They think
Mhm.
that 30-minute sessions and having 100 swings in 30 minutes has value. I don't think so. I think that's a babysitting session. So I have to sell parents on why I think the 2 hour long journey in one day, 5 times a week is needed over whatever it is that they think is cool. So how would you sell to the parents, or what? Maybe that's not the right way to the question to ask. What is the questions parents need to ask when they're trying to get their hitters developed?
I would say long term, what what is the plan long term, and how is some of this stuff that you're teaching going to stick? Because when my son or daughter, whoever goes off to college, they're not they're going to be in more of a group setting with one hitting coach. So you're your own coach. You have to be able to survive in a high level setting like that. So what are you doing to help my son get to that mindset to where he can be his own hitting coach? In my opinion, that would be what's most important to me.
Man, you brought up a good point to that, which I think there's follow-up questions in kind of the maybe the friction of the questions that might be asked from a parent to a hitting coach. But the point that you just made, and I talked about it a little, but I wasn't thinking on this level. When you go to college, you have a hitting coach, or you have at least coaches that know how to hit. At some point, they're creating plans for you. There is no way that you're going to get one-on-one instruction in college. Maybe there's a day once or twice a year, but there's no way they're doing that for 30 to 40 athletes on the baseball side, 18 to 22 or so on the softball side. You're not getting the one-on-one attention that you think that you're going to get. And so the prep is, how do we prepare for high school? Because even in high school, you don't have a staff that they can afford that puts you in position to have a hitting coach, a pitching coach, two on-field coaches, and three dugout guys. You don't have that stuff in high school, and some colleges can't afford that unless they have graduate assistants, or somehow they're making some sort of tuition deals with the university. So
Right.
how do you that to me, it's like the biggest sell in my opinion is, again, it goes back to development. What are we preparing them for? It should be middle school baseball, high school baseball, college baseball, professional sports, right?
Right.
And all three of the highest levels that we could potentially play, assuming that varsity baseball is going to be the highest for most people, you have to do your own thing with a group of
Hmm.
people, and you have to navigate, you have to self-organize. And so what you're telling me is that the best solution for your kid to be prepared for high school varsity baseball, high school in general, because you have one freshman coach usually with a teammate coaching first base
Yeah.
typically.
Yeah.
So how in the heck why in the world is it so difficult to get people to understand that group sessions have maybe more value than the one-on-ones as a whole?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just the fact that I think parents at times can get caught up in the fact that your full undivided attention isn't on their son the entire time. So especially when you got groups of, bigger groups, which when we get above like 5 or 6 guys, we throw multiple instructors on the session. We'll have sometimes with our biggest groups, we'll have 3 instructors on the session, each one to their own cage. Um, so while the attention isn't undivided for 30 minutes on your son, you are going to get plenty of looks in an hour and a half to 2 hour session of hitting. And more importantly, you're going to face, we've thought of just about everything that could possibly be thrown at them in a game situation. that's what the multiple cages allows us to do with left-handed arm angles. We have two machines to a cage, so we can do all kinds. We can do a slider, lefty slider in one cage, another cage that's set up to a lefty arm angle. We can do more of a 12-6 breaking ball look. We can do change ups, like everything that we could possibly think of that they might run into, they're going to get at some point. So there's no excuse when they go in the game. It's like, well, I haven't seen this pitch before. Yeah, you have.
Yeah, that's
outside of maybe a knuckleball or something. So you run into a knuckleballer, maybe they got us, but every other thing we've prepared them for.
That's what I try to tell those guys when we do our stuff. It's like, well, coach, what about the knuckleball we saw 3 weeks ago? And I was
Yeah,
like, well, guys, my only suggestion is if it's high, let it fly. You know what I
that's
mean?
right.
And so that's kind of what I tell the guys when they hit a knuckleball, because I can't throw one anymore. But it's I think about the true development and the conversation of kind of what you go through, and even what Cody goes through, and Shane Eames, guys that we've had on there, Josh Cathcart down in Texas, that we've all discussed this. Everybody's got a little bit of a different view. You got Josh Cathcart likes he loves the one-on-one, and it's the high level players that he has. Shane Eames likes the one-on-ones, high level guys that he has. It's the new instructor that's 25 years old that has the 10U kid that is just flipping BP, and it's a babysitting 30 minutes, and everybody seems happy. That I feel is just a massive miss. I think that we should just take away all of that stuff. Take away trying to pay a coach to be in there for them in your 12-week session. Eliminate that cost for them. Keep it cheap. Give them a membership to the facility, and tell them to go up there with their parents and friends and just hit all the time. Because at the end
Right.
of the day, like how much are they going to change between 9 and 13U? And we know that they change between 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, because I didn't become I was late to bloom. I was a freshman in college, same way. I graduated at 17. I didn't really fully understand until I was 19. And then when I was like 26 years old, then I really kind of understood that, what was between the ears going on. And so there's
Yeah.
just this long journey. And I think that you need to take the value of what we continuously hear, is that you need to have a lot of swings during the week. And it doesn't have to be a lot every single day. But if you're going into your sessions and you're getting 2 hours over 30 minutes, I have to envision 2 hours has way more value than 30 minutes. I have to think that. And
More reps.
100%. And even if it's not more reps and it's more conversation, those are mental reps to prepare them for
Correct.
the more reps at next practice. That may be different, because the you thought practice was going to be one way, but the questions that were being asked that day led to a whole different conversations happening, and you felt like it might have been important to go the mental approach versus all these reps and the whys of back hitting backside on a ball that's up in the zone versus trying to pull that thing. And it those kinds of things are growing athletes, and I think that's what we should be asking. How are you going to help my player grow mentally? Well, I'm going to let him fail. That's my initial
Yeah.
thought. I'm going to let him fail because he needs to learn to self-organize. And when he learns to self-organize, he's going to get everything I talk about. Until he learns how to self-organize, or until he's learning how to change, the definition of insanity, I have to ask that question all the time, and kids know what it means. And I'm like, if you continue to do the same thing and you're going to get the same result, I'm going to stop talking to you, because you're not willing to be uncomfortable. And to me, that's where the development comes from, right? It's like being uncomfortable. You will develop because it's tough. If everything was
Yeah.
easy, you're not going to get better.
Yep. And to your point, and just for the record, I'm not completely against one-on-one sessions. I think there's value in it. Like you said earlier, like if there's a guy who's mechanically far behind and it's pretty clear that it's not mindset, it's mechanics that are failing him in the group session, I'm more than happy to pull that guy aside and be like, hey, come see me on whatever, and we'll hit for 30 minutes and we'll get some stuff cleaned up, and then hopefully after one or two of those you'll be ready to hop right back into the group. But we're always trying to eventually end goal get the guys to the group session where we can work on just so many different things and prepare them more for the game, because they're hitters, they're not swingers. I know that that's a kind of cliche term, but it's true.
Yeah, definitely. Nowadays, it feels like that's what everybody says. Nobody needs a swing coach. We need hitting coaches.
Great.
But there's a lot that goes into that because I don't think we're building mentality and how to hit and kind of being the dependent on the things that I've worked so hard for in a cage. I really enjoy the conversations against one-on-ones. I do the same thing that you're talking about, and I think for the most part those who program have these things kind of built in. So what we'll end up doing, like we give in our programming, we give 6 sessions included in your monthly fee. Not 6 sessions in a month, but like, so if you sign up for a 6 month program, you basically get 6 one-on-one sessions free. If you wanted to use them in 6 weeks, you could use them in 6 weeks. If you wanted to use them in 6 days, those are yours. We kind of include them in there for just that reason in general, because sometimes people process differently, right? Just processing the information you're trying to give them in the conversations you have. So one-on-ones are definitely valuable, and even on an average athlete scale, it still has value. I just don't think that the one-on-one is more valuable than a programming um, session. And BC, I love building champions. I love the mindset. I know a little bit about BC. We've had conversations with them in the past. We've actually used some of your guys to help us out last year to kind of play in some high school. Maybe it was 2 years ago. We've mixed kind of in the middle. We've had kids from your space, my space, and Columbia, putting it together and kind of going to playing in some events.
Yeah.
He had a big right-hander that came down. It might have been 2 years ago. Came up to Kansas City with us and played in Columbia. I don't remember his name now. Whatever. But the building champions mindset, like, it's not building uh championship trophies. It's building champions, right?
Yeah.
And what does that mean for you guys when you say building champions? What is your mantra for your club?
We're preparing guys for the next level of wherever they're at. Whether it's a 10-year-old, we're preparing them for when they get to 14U. When they're 14, we're preparing them for high school ball. When they're freshmen, we're preparing them for varsity. When they're a varsity kid, we're preparing them for college. So we believe that falls within the little details of the game, like as simple as organizing infielders' gloves on the same side of the bench so that they can be picked up after the inning's over, to outfielders on this side of the dugout, catchers in the middle with their gear there. Like, just like literally as simple as organizing the dugout, to timing them on and off the field, to how we run the bases. It's just, it all falls within the little details, because there's a lot of great programs out there who can just mash and they throw gas and they're like got all the talent in the world. But I think the separator is being disciplined at the younger levels, especially, to do those little things at a championship level.
Do you think those things long term in baseball, and because talent always plays, right? We always say that as coaches, talent will always play, but there comes a point where talent um, kind of fizzles out, in my opinion, if you don't have some of those tools that you just talked about. I'm not sure if you're talking about the grinder necessarily, that kind of athlete, but the culture and expectations of winning baseball, the glove, where you put the gloves, having them, fingers down versus just laying around or in the dirt or wherever, like the respect for the parents' money and the time spent. That goes a long way, because you get into some of the kangaroo court stuff. You have this stuff at the next level, right? And people don't
Yeah.
even know what kangaroo court is, and it's like, man, like, everybody should know what that means. And I needed
Right.
somebody to tell me that, though. I obviously didn't know what it meant. We had it in high school because we had a parent of a ball player that played professional baseball, so they introduced us to kangaroo court.
Right.
Some of it was made up of our own, which we're not going to talk about. The other stuff was kind of was about bubble gum and chocolate and whatnot, stupid stuff. And when you got into college, then it became more serious. You might have had to get a
Yeah.
12-pack, and I'm not talking about Coca-Cola or Pepsi. If you had you gave up a 2-strike home run, it was a big deal, and it was just about focusing. Little things like that. I feel like if you can focus on those details, those are going to help you win baseball games because the talent still can go 0 for 4. Doesn't matter how fast you run. Doesn't matter how hard you throw. If you throw the ball flat down the middle, you're going to get hit.
Yeah.
If you can't execute your strikes, and I try to tell my pitchers now that Sandy Koufax said, and I'm paraphrasing here. I don't know the quote exactly about. He became a better pitcher when he tried to make guys hit the ball versus miss the ball, something on those
Yeah.
lines. And it's like, well, wait a minute. He got more strikeouts trying to make him hit it than trying to be cute. Because of the competition level. He just said, "Here you go. Here's my best stuff." And it's like we don't teach that. I don't think we teach that enough.
Right. Yeah, I mean it's like this game's really really hard. So we never expect the hard parts of this game to be perfect, but what you can control are the maybe tedious things that at hand are actually really easy to execute. It just might take a little bit of extra effort. That's what we expect. And even coming from what Cody's built with his new Rascals organization over in Troy, Illinois side, he does a really good job of enforcing those things too. Just be really, really good at the things you can control. Let the hard parts, I mean, whatever happens, happens. We'll work on those. We'll get your swing as good as we can. We'll try to help your mentality out. We'll try to help you on the mound as much as possible. But like, there's non-negotiables to this game. It's like running hard to first base should be a non-negotiable. Backing up, you're having your backup responsibilities and like hustling on and off the field between innings should be a non-negotiable.
Non-negotiables. What I'm hearing, and this is what I think parents need to understand, find yourself a baseball guy, not a coach that can collect talent and sell you on some dream outcome. Find a baseball guy because that baseball guy is probably going to get you further than that collection of talent. I like to think that the guy that's going to argue that, that has the collection of talent, he's going to argue something that he's a baseball guy or something like that. I bet those things are negotiable. I bet his kids take advantage of the situation. His parents are taking advantage of him because he wants to keep the collection of talent there. And when I think about the coaches that are winning, the Augie Garridos, the Texas, former coach, and the guys at Florida State that I grew up watching, and the coaches at Vandy, and the Mike Krzyzewskis in basketball, Coach K. What I call did I give, I don't even know if I said his name right just now, but anyways, I'm
I
a
think you
Duke
did.
I'm a Duke Blue
I
Devils
think you got it
basketball
right.
fan, but I hope so. I better, but I'll call him just Coach K. But I think about
There you
stuff
go.
like that, man, and it's like we're not tough. We don't demand things, or we don't demand the hustle on and off the field, and I think that's part of the development process. And I think that stuff's accountable inside your facilities too. Like when you got the last group hitting for the night, it always sucks, but they should be the ones cleaning up the cages. It's their
Yeah.
home. It's not mine. It's not yours. Building champions is for those athletes that walk through that door, not for you and not for your ownership group, right? So uh, that's what I have to say for the parents is find a baseball guy that shares the passion and knowledge like Coach Hunter does, Coach Cody does. The non-negotiables, those little details. If you want development path, I think those are it. What do you have, Hunter, for the fans here and for those who know you up in the Kansas City area? What kind of suggestion do you have for parents? Going through this process, give them one piece of advice.
Man, I would just say let the coaches coach. Like, just support your kid as much as possible and make the game fun. Like, that's really your role. They're going to be demanded a lot when they show up to a game and they're being coached already. Don't add on to the demands. Like, just be their biggest fan. Like, my parents were really really great about making sure I was on time for everything. Like, they were sticklers about being on time, making sure I was, shirt tucked in, hat down, no bangs showing, sunglasses not covering up the logo of the hat, like the little things like that. But as soon as I got to the ball field, they were just the biggest fans, and after the game they wouldn't bring up the game unless I brought it up. Like, just be a support system, not a extra coach.
I love that. And because that is, when I ask that question, that is probably 95% of the answers. Let the kids have fun. Coaches coach, players play, parents parent. And I know that we can't do those things necessarily as coaches to tell people how to parent and stuff like that, but it's a common theme. Everybody's trying to tell you, just let them play, let them have fun. Don't put all the extra demands on them, and let the coaches kind of do their job. There's a trust factor that happens there. And Hunter, I appreciate it. So we're going to share your socials so that we can find you. We'll have Building Champions on there and your personal Instagrams and stuff so that we can go out and follow you. I encourage everybody to go do that. So make sure that since you're already watching us on YouTube, that you've actually hit that notification thing so you can get see podcasts like this. We have a great slew of hosts. We got Baseball 101 that we did with Dave Wiggins last week. We have Keep Climbing with Brett Graves. Who's a former professional athlete, and it's just exciting times. And Hunter, I wish you the best this year. And I'm assuming you got a little bit of time off, or are you coaching youth?
We got 14s coming up. They've been practicing with us all off season, but they start their in-season outdoor practices here in a couple weeks. We're going to have them inside a couple more times before we get to that, and they start playing in late March. So I'll have one of the team. We got 5 14U teams, and our full-time staff here, which I think we've got 8 or 9 of them. We kind of all work together to make sure that those guys are developing, and it's kind of their last big year before high school starts. So yeah, it is a little bit of downtime with high school guys starting, but we're staying busy.
Yeah, I love that part because I looked out at the parking lot last night and I was like, man, it's still packed. I love that piece as a facility owner, right? So I'm going to reach out because I want to have maybe your group on, your ownership group, Justin. I think you said Justin was his name, correct? Your
Jeremy
guy?
Jeremy. He's our head. Yep.
I'd like to get him on. So we're going to get his information. Hunter, I appreciate it, man. Best of luck to you this year with your group. And, we're going to keep watching because obviously we're going to be in Kansas City, with some of the Blue Springs stuff going on. So maybe we'll see you out at the park. So Hunter, appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope to meet you in person. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll do this again come fall because in the summer we're busy.
For sure. Anytime.